This is my King James Ryrie Study Bible. And this is Charles Ryrie's note on Mark 16, verses 9 to 20. These verses do not appear in two of the most trustworthy manuscripts of the New Testament, though they are part of many other manuscripts and versions. If they are not a part of the genuine text of Mark, the abrupt ending at verse 8 is probably because the original closing verses were lost. The doubtful genuineness of verses 9 to 20 makes it unwise to build a doctrine or base an experience on them, especially verses 16 to 18. Can't you just feel the faith in God's holy words oozing out of this commentary? Yeah, I don't either. But that is what I was taught, and that is what millions upon millions of Christians have been taught for decades. If you've been watching the last 10 or so vlogs, you already know more than almost all of them about Codex Sinaiticus, maybe even than Ryrie. So many people, as I was taught as well, believed and believe that the Sinaiticus is the oldest complete Bible in the world. Well, a lot of you already know that Sinaiticus isn't complete. About a quarter of the books are missing. So what if I could show you proof positive that the Sinaiticus wasn't written in the 300s? And maybe I could show you one reason why we know it wasn't written before the mid-400s either. What if I could prove from the Sinaiticus itself that it isn't any older than the 1300s? I've shown you how the oldest and best is not the best. Now, would you like to see how it isn't the oldest either? I found out some great stuff just yesterday. Turn on the subtitles if you need them. Ready? Hi, I'm David Daniels from Chick Publications. I told you before that the New Testament of the Sinaiticus was complete. All 27 books we know are in it, but there are two extra books. The Epistle of Barnabas and the Shepherd of Hermas. Barnabas is complete, but the Shepherd of Hermas is in pieces. How long has it been that way? It doesn't seem like such a big mystery after you find out what I found out. In 1844, Tischendorf made his first journey to St. Catherine's Monastery in the Sinai Peninsula. 15 years later, when he talked about it, all he said he saw were some pieces of the Old Testament, and he took a third of what he saw, 43 leaves. That went to his patron, Frederick of Saxony. This is him in 1841. But the next year, in 1845, the Russian religious official Porfiry Uspensky came to St. Catherine's. Both in 1845 and in 1850, he saw the Sinaiticus and wrote about it, describing it in terms that show he saw all that Tischendorf would describe 14 years later. My fellow researchers, Steve Avery, Mark Mitchell, and I all wanted to know what Uspensky wrote, but none of us knows how to read Old Slovenian. Thankfully, a missionary to the Ukraine, John Spillman, got it translated for us from Old Slovenian into Russian into English. We were pretty excited. This may be the first time this has ever been openly translated into English. Even so, I'll just point out some important points for us now. Uspensky wrote, "The best Greek manuscripts are stored in the prior's cells." That's the lead monk's rooms. There are only 4 of them. but they are very precious for their antiquity, rarity, and handwriting features, for their content, for the elegance of the beautiful faces of the saints and entertaining drawings and paintings. The first manuscript containing the Old Testament, which was incomplete, and the entire New Testament with the Epistle of St. Barnabas and the Book of Hermas, was written on the finest white parchment in the fourth share of a long and wide sheet. Did you catch the finest white parchment? And did you notice he didn't say part of Hermas? Remember, he said the Old Testament was incomplete, then talked about the entire New Testament with the Epistle of St. Barnabas and the Book of Hermas. I'm just summarizing. He wrote in a lot more detail than I'm giving. But it sounds like in 1845 and 1850, the Shepherd of Hermas was complete. Remember that. Quote, all the sacred texts were written in 4 and 2 columns, and all the words connected without spaces. His quote says, and so together as if one long utterance stretches from point to point. Because you see, there's no periods, no commas, it just keeps going and going, right? All right, he went on. Such a formulation of letters, the way of writing of the sacred text, invented by the Alexandrian deacon Euthalius about 446 AD, and soon abandoned due to the many gaps between the columns on the expensive parchment, prove that this manuscript was published in the 5th century. It's funny, Tischendorf acted like Uspensky was ignorant, but look, he spent time telling about the Sinaiticus in detail. I think Tischendorf didn't want anyone to believe what Uspensky was saying. You see, Uspensky states that Euthalius the deacon in Alexandria came up with that way of writing in columns, like you see in Sinaiticus and Vaticanus. But it was only done for a short time. And this change in formatting didn't start till at least 446 AD. In his simple analysis, Uspensky gave us evidence from Sinaiticus that is no earlier than the middle of the 5th century. That's 100 years too late to be one of Constantine's 50 Bibles decreed in 330, or to be the oldest and best. At 450 AD, that puts it at the same age as people date the Alexandrinus. So now, we know that the Sinaiticus can be no older than 450 AD, 5th century. But wait, Vaticanus was also made like that, with 3 columns instead of 4, and lots of empty space. That means Vaticanus can't be older than 450 AD either. So, neither Sinaiticus nor Vaticanus could have been one of Constantine's 50 Bibles, and both are no older than they say Codex Alexandrinus is. But we're not finished. Now it gets really interesting. Let's go back to the Shepherd of Hermas. Many people say that the real Shepherd of Hermas was composed no earlier than about 130 AD and maybe not later than the 160s. And it was originally written in Greek. But all we had for the longest time were Latin copies. There are Codex Vaticanus 3848, dated in the late 1300s AD. There are a few others about the same date. There's the Dresden Codex, dated in the 1400s. These pretty much have the same Latin text between them, but there is one unusual one. It's called Codex Palatinus 150 in the Vatican Library. This Palatine Codex made some changes, and clearly switched some Latin terms so that it was different from the other translations of Hermas. But no one saw Hermas in Greek, aside from small quotes out of it by proto-Catholic church fathers like Origen, up until 1855. In 1855, a man claimed that he came from northern Greece, from a hill called Mount Athos, that was filled with 20 Eastern Orthodox monasteries. He said that he found a rare Greek copy of the original Shepherd of Hermas. He got somebody to buy his copy of Hermas, and in 1856 it was published at Leipzig and called Codex Lipsiensis. Oh, here we go. But Tischendorf was shown it, right there, and he had his doubts about the text. He said there was no way it could be an original form from the Greek. He said it back-translated Latin words into Greek and gave a number of examples. That changed the date of the Lipsiensis forward to the late 1300s, the date of the Palatine Codex. That's because the Greek words were clearly based off of certain Latin words that were only found in the Palatine Codex version of Hermas, not the others. Are you with me? Then, a partner of the man who sold the manuscript came forward. He said, "Don't believe him. He's a con man, and he's a forger." And he'd been selling supposedly ancient manuscripts from 1843 to 1856. People all over Europe felt conned. They trusted this man as a scholar. He had claimed that he found ancient hidden treasures on Mount Athos, and they paid top dollar for them. That man was Constantine Simonides. It'll take another vlog just to tell you more about him. But here's a limerick to help you remember Constantine Simonides. There once was a man called Simonides. With him, scholars once all felt at ease. But when he was exposed, they all felt disposed to dispose of his supposed antiquities. The people believed the brilliant scholar Tischendorf. People stopped believing the brilliant forger Simonides. Then, 3 years later, Tischendorf reversed his view. Why? Because he'd just come from St. Catherine's with a pile of Greek Bible parchment, and in that parchment was, drum roll please, the Shepherd of Hermas. But now, according to Tischendorf's story, it was only part of Hermas, but just as important, listen. Now Tischendorf said, Codex Lipsiensis wasn't messed up after all. But actually, it was 1,000 years older than he had previously thought. You know why? Because the parts of the Shepherd of Hermas that were in Sinaiticus were almost identical to the Codex Lipsiensis that Simonides sold. Once again, the people believed Tischendorf. Why would he lie? And it was big of him to sort of admit that he was a bit mistaken before. They said, thank you. At least we know this one manuscript is genuine. And Simonides' reputation was at least partially restored. Why is this story important? Because of what I'm about to show you. How can we find out if what Tischendorf said was true and which time? Another scholar named James Donaldson wrote in 1874 saying that Tischendorf was right the first time. Let me show you why I know the Sinaiticus is even newer than 450 AD. I've even got the photos to prove it. The best way to prove the character of a text is to see where it came from. That's why one way to group text has been to see who repeats the same mistakes. If you have a text that makes the same changes in numerous places as another text, those two are probably related. There are only so many copies of the Shepherd of Hermas, as I told you. But of all of them, only one makes the mistakes that were in Simonides Hermes. Could those same mistakes also be in the Sinaiticus? Let's check. Donaldson's first objection was that a lot of the words in Simonides Lipsiensis are actually more modern Greek words, and not words that he's ever found in such abundance in any ancient Greek manuscript. These include a great number of words unknown to the classical period, but common in later or modern Greek. I'll just show you the list, both of the modern Greek letters and the Sinaiticus Greek letters. You're welcome to look at them for yourself at www.codexsinaiticus.org. You can check these verses out for yourself. A second proof that Donaldson gave was Greek words in Latin form instead of a Greek form. That's these right here. When I looked at his example, I found out they were from the same verse. Hermes, or Hermas, same thing, Visions 3, verse 1. Online on codexsinaiticus.org, it's listed as Hermas 9, verse 4. By the way, this is it in the Lipsiensis, the thing that Simonides gave. Here's the page marked out for you. Hermas 9, verse 4. Now I'm going to show you some enhanced detail shots. Those very words, Sympselion, Kerbacarion, Lention, and Carpasinon, all are right in the same verse. And if you look right here, see it says Kai E, just like it says right here. Believe it or not, Scribe B2 actually started writing the Kai E on the previous line, then started all over again on the next line, writing Kai Epano. Okay, it pays to pay attention, but now, get ready. We come to maximum overkill. As I said, all but one of the Latin translations of the Shepherd of Hermas are pretty much the same, but one stands out, the Palatine Codex 150 of the Vatican Library. And one example above all convinced me that Simonides Lipsiensis and the Sinaitic Hermes or Hermas are both back translated from the Vatican Palatine Codex. At Visions 1:3, we find this line here. And by the way, or Visions 2:3, sorry. If you look online, it's Hermas 7, verse 4. Go figure. Okay, as Donaldson showed, it's supposed to say, right here, it's supposed to say, but say thou, behold, great tribulation cometh. In Latin, great is magna. In Greek, it's megale. And thlipsis megale is exactly the term great tribulation used 3 times in the New Testament. But the Vatican's Palatine Codex changed magna to maximo. That's like changing great to greatest. Or Maximo could also be the name of a person, Maximus. So that could get you confused. So guess what Simonides Lipsiensis did? It transliterated the word Maximo in Greek. Well, guess what the Sinaiticus did with the Greek? Here it is. It transliterated Maximo right here. In fact, in Donaldson's words, now we find that the text of the Pastor of Hermas found in the Sinaitic Codex is substantially the same as that given in the Athos manuscript, meaning Codex Lipsiensis, the Shepherd of Hermas that was given by Simonides. The variations are comparatively slight. In fact, the only changes I saw were between the letters EI and I. Seriously. Donaldson also wrote, then there is a considerable number of passages preserved to us in Greek by Origen and other writers. The Sinaitic Greek differs often from this Greek and agrees with the Latin translation, especially the Palatine. And there isn't anything earlier they could have copied. So, Codex Sinaiticus is a fake, a phony, a counterfeit. It's not from 350 AD. It's not from 450 AD. It's no older than 1350 AD. So Sinaiticus is not the best and it's not the oldest. At best, it's a medieval phony. And I think that it was made in a bit of a rush, not long before 1843 AD. But I don't have to go looking for a hidden book in a monastery. I don't need Rome to give me a partial Bible hidden by monks. My God gave me his book in plain sight. The faith-building, God-exalting, sin-busting, gospel-preaching, 400 plus years tried, tested, and proved King James Bible. Don't leave Rome without it. God bless you and have a wonderful day.